Hey, what's up guys? It's Hayes with CheatSheetPros.com. It's about 4:15 on November 7th, and I'm going to do a little video on the NBA cheat sheet. This is the time of year where I get bombarded with emails of people saying, well, what is your cheat sheet? What's it do? I do sports betting, or I do daily fantasy, or I do player props. So we cover all three, so I'm going to walk you through the cheat sheet and kind of show you what it looks like for basketball. There are a few new things on here. So real quick, I'm going to go ahead and hit player props first because you can do anything in the sheet with props. You can see all our tabs down here. So one of the things that we have is just this prize props tab. And so what I do is I post this sheet in the morning, usually before 9 or 10 a.m., and then I update it in the afternoon. The afternoon update has about 300 NBA prize picks. And so what we have here, we've got the prop, the line, the last 7 average for this particular stat, and then the difference. So you can sort this high to low. And then we have the daily raw projection for the said stat, and then the difference. Now over here I put in a streak so you can see how many overs have hit in a row to have a little bit of a streak. And then over here we have the last 5 games, which I will be expanding this. I just wanted to get the update going, but we'll expand this out to 7, 8, 9, 10 games. And then I usually sort it by highest to lowest. So for example, here you can see there are 5 player props that have hit each of the last 5 games. Projections just slightly lower, which a projection is just an average, so I like to look at the last 7 average, and you can see all of these have been substantially over, thus the over. But you can see they're 2 of them are the same players. So you got Buddy Hield, his points, rebounds, assist, and fantasy score, and then you've also got Steph Curry, his PRA, fantasy score, and then Anunoby, his fantasy score. So when you're looking at this, you could say, okay, Anunoby fantasy scores 34.5. He's averaging 45.7. And then over the last 5 games, he's put up 44.7. We'll say 48, 45, 49, and 40. So that's a good one to take a look at. But again, look in a little deeper. This is just kind of something to lead you. Also, if you don't want to look at percentages, you can go over here and you can take a look at streaks. And you can sort it up and say, okay, who's got a 5 streak? Well, who has a 4 streak where they've hit each of the last 4 games? And then that would take you to these props if you're looking for some second tier one. An interesting one here that I saw as I was making this video is the Paul George points, 25.5. He's averaging 31.3 over the last week. And you can see his last 4 games, he's had 34, 32, 28, 35. So that's a lot of information right there to help me make an informed decision. So my goal is to make a sheet that jumps right out there and shows you what you need to see. So also when you're doing props, one of the other things that we have this year, let me see if I can slide this out. I'm going to focus on, so on this side of the sheet, when you go up here, you see you click inside this box and you can pick the team and it will flip and show you everything else. So now since I'm running out of screen room, I want to show you the box we're testing out and we're playing with now. So it's on the sheet, you can play with it. So over here, it's going to show you the date of the last 5 games for said team over here. And then it's going to show you the props for the top players. I've pulled, it was the top 80 to 100 players. Now I'm up to about 100 to 125 players. But you can click in here and you can pick points, rebounds, assist, PRA, fantasy score, 3 points, and blocks and steals. I love the blocks and steals one. So you can kind of flip through here and you know, kind of get an idea of if you're doing a same game parlay. Of course, that's not fantasy score, but like, for example, if you're looking at rebounds, you can see who did the rebounds. You can see here for Charlotte, we've only got the top 2 players that are pulling up stats. So let me slide this back over. But some of these other ones, so I go through every day, and if I try to get the top 5, top 7 players for each team. So here you can see for Atlanta, we've got the top 5 player stats pulled in. So for example, if you're looking at points and you want to say, okay, what do the points look like? The point distribution for the players over the last week, you can kind of get an idea. And I'll eventually color code this and make it fancy and pretty, but right now I wanted to just test it, pulling everything in. And then we have a quick DVP up here at the top, just the last 10 games, so you can see how they rank as overall points, and then points in the paint, perimeter, rebounds, and assists. So rebounds and assists are a big prop. So points, rebounds, assists. And then we got points in the paint and the perimeter, which are 3-point shots made, are another one that always jumps out that we look at. Over here, we've got the usage. The top 3 are highlighted. We also have the minute projection, and then I've got a little totaler here. So there's 240 minutes. Whoops. So you can get an idea. So if they're projected low or high. So if it's less than 240, there's a couple extra minutes left that's not in there. So 232, this one's probably just a little bit deeper than 10 players. And then you get an idea of what they're projecting the raw points, rebounds, assists, and everything to be. But these are your daily raw projections. So we have points, rebounds, assists, the 3-point shots, blocks and steals I added in this week. And there was an interesting one with, here, I'll just show it to you real quick. Gosh, what am I doing? I keep clicking this and it keeps disappearing. So the first thing I did today is I wanted to tinker around on my lunch break. So I come over here to the DVP tab that has all the DVP from the team totals to all the individual positions if you keep scrolling over. And you can break everything down from what they're giving up to the points, the rebounds, the assist, PRA, what it ranks, total fantasy points, etc., etc. I always sort this by total fantasy points allowed. I try to keep this for the last 15 days, so it's kind of always moving. So here you can see Oklahoma City's given up a bunch, 62.7. That's one of the highest on the slate. So a Detroit big guy would be someone you may want to target for DFS or a player prop. Now down here, this was added in. Sammy wanted to get this back on here, and I agree. So the interior, which is like points in the paint, perimeter, which is basically focusing on like 3-point shots, and then the last 2 weeks, blocks and steals, kind of what they allowed. So I come in here to steals, and I'm going to sort this high to low. So these top few teams, they give up about 9 steals a game, which is a pretty good chunk. And so it's this team that's giving it up. So these are the ones we want to look at steal people. So Denver was the top one. So San Antonio's giving up 9.3 steals per game. So I want to go over and I want to look at the Denver and San Antonio game. So I go over here to the props tab, and I think this one's at the bottom. Denver, San Antonio, there it is. So I pull it up, and I'm going to look at the raw projection for steals across, well, wrong team. I'm going to look at the, man, something's wrong with my mouse. So I'm looking at the raw projection for the steals, and here you can see Jokic is projected at 1.4, KCP 1, Murray 1, and then I want to flip here and look at the last 7 and last 15-day averages and kind of see what people are doing, what they're looking at. So the one that jumps out at me, KCP, is averaging 2 steals per game. So I went back and looked at his game logs, and they actually just played San Antonio, and he had 4 steals in that game. So I went over to my DK Sportsbook, and 2 steals, so over 1.5 was plus 215. So that was one of the juicy plays I mixed in tonight, and that's kind of how I dug it up and look at it for player props. But you can also use this for fantasy as well. So that's kind of what we do for player props. If you're playing specifically on Prize Picks, you got a lot of information here. I'll pull up to 400 lines. There's typically about 40 in the morning, 40 to 50, and then it gets up to about 300 in the afternoon. And we do everything from 3-point shots, points, rebounds, fantasy score, anything in there I can grab and get some player logs on, I'm going to do it. Player tracker, if you're playing daily fantasy, let's flip over to that real quick. So for daily fantasy, come over here. I always sort this by our algo. Where's it at? Okay, it's on the backside. So I sort it by boom bust. I apologize. So I sort this by boom. And this is going to bring up some of the better plays. And you can see we've got player labels over here for mini diamond, diamond. Those are some of the best plays. So for example, tonight, Westbrook is a diamond. Halliburton's a diamond. So there's a couple guys that you can look at. We got another one down here, Desmond Bane. And we've got everything. Vegas spread. We have a boom bust score. There's our GPP algo. Projected minutes, minutes last 3. We have our player label. These are custom projections if you want to upload them into an optimizer like Fantasy Cruncher. And then we also have our DraftKings and FanDuel projections as well, sitting right there on the side. And then you come over here and we've got the DVP breakdown. Now what this is, over the last 2 weeks, we're going to show how many points is given up to that player's primary position, as well as a percentage of the total points. So you can get a good idea of what the DVP is. Give me 1 second here. Okay. All right, now we're gonna go over here, and the other part of the sheet, this one's a lot of fun. So I'm gonna come back to this middle, and we're gonna go over that. But over here on the right, this is kind of a minute section, so you can see their projected minutes, what they've averaged the last 3, 5, and 10 games, and then what they've played each of the last 5 games, so you can get an idea if their minutes are sporadic, if they're going all over the place, or if they're a consistent, you know, like Buddy, 32, 33, 38, 36, 40. So it's easy to say he's going to play 32 plus minutes. So projected minutes are one of the hardest things to do for basketball. And then we come over here, we've got a stud index. Just if you're between 2 players, you can go over here to this stud index, and it's going to bring up some plays. This is a custom little calculation, which is just the last 5 games with their fantasy point per minute times their projected minutes. So this is going to dig up some players that the DFS salaries have not caught up to, and good pivots that you can use in GPPs. And then over here, we've got a cheat sheet projection and then a cheat sheet value. So this is going to be more of a custom type projection of what we're coming up with. And these are great to upload. And I put these together. So like if you go to Fantasy Cruncher, you can grab the player, the projection, just copy, paste, put it in there. And 95% of them are going to go. There may be a name or two that's off by a space or something, but they're easy fixes. Over here, we've got our usage. And this is our quick look for our players. So we can see their projected points versus last 5 average. We can see their projected minutes versus last 5 average. And I love the fantasy point per minute calculation for fantasy. And you can see what that is versus the last 5. So for example, Nunaby over here, his fantasy point per minute is 0.92. That's kind of what he has averaged for pretty much most of his career when he's on the floor. Now the good thing about this is it doesn't matter how many minutes he's playing, the fantasy point per minute is going to give you a number to determine, you know, when he is playing, how well does he do? Well, over the last 5 games, he's playing at a 1.28. Now, Siakam was out the last game, might have been the last 2 games, so that kind of drove it up a little bit, but you can see there's a 36% bump. So this is someone that you might jump into or, you know, get a hold of. For example, Bones Highland is another one, 0.97 up to 1.56. That is a phenomenal number. So let's flip back over here. And over here, this is the fantasy points. So the same thing can be found on our player tracker here. And then I forgot I had it on here as well. So I guess I got that kind of duplicated when I pulled this up. But either way, we've got our last 16 games. And then 5x is kind of the number on DraftKings that you want to hit. And so we have a hit rate. How many times have they hit 5x on their salary? Dang it, my mouse is deleting every time I click. So we have our 5x hit rate, our 6x counter. So every time it hits 6x, we're going to count how many games, and then 7x games. So you can see here, this player has 3 7x games across this span of the last 16 days. I try to get, 4, 8, 7 to 10 games anywhere in there. But it's kind of a fun little grid to look at, and it's color-coded. So the red, that means they've had 6x and up on their salary today. 5x to 6x is green. 4.5 to 5x, almost value, slightly under. That's just kind of a gold. And then if it's under 4.5x, they did not hit value. That's not good for cash or anything. So take a look at that. And it could be something where they just didn't play as many minutes. But a lot of data in here that you can take a look at. You can sort these out. You can sort out boom percentage over 50%. You can pick out team totals, spreads. You can take raw projections. You can also look at some ownership numbers and kind of see what they come out at. A lot of different things you can do. DVP we talked about. Tiers, if you play on DraftKings, it's kind of the same thing, but I broke it down and just left the separate tiers in here for you. Player tracker, props, prize props. Now let's go over to sports betting. Now on sports betting, let me slide this over, make sure you can see it. So over here, you click into this bottom team and you get the little carrot drop down as you see in all our tutorials. And today, every team is playing, so you can kind of flip through here and say, okay, well this game, well what it's going to do, it's going to pull up our cheat sheet power ratings. It's going to pull up the last 10 game power ratings, the spread, and then it's going to pull up their record over the last 10, their ATS record, and home versus road ATS. So for the top team, it's going to be the road ATS, and the bottom, it's going to be the home record ATS, so you can kind of get a comparison. And then the ATS overall, And then over here, we got some different models we put together. If this looks confusing to you, I completely understand it. Just stick right here. This main model projection, this is kind of what you want to look at. So here, Indy's plus 5.5, and we're saying they should be plus 2. So that's pretty close of a pick there. There's nothing that would jump out. So let's flip over here and find a different game. So for example, you can look at the total. We have a projected score. We have a projected line. So here Sacramento is plus 7.5, and we have them as minus 6. So that might be a game you look at and say, why? Well, one of the things you need to understand is if there's a key player that's out, like if De'Aaron Fox isn't playing, that can change a line. There could just be some crazy numbers. And so that's why we have the last 10 games for each team. Now you can see here, Sacramento's only played 8 games, but you can see here they've won 3 of the last 4. They've been close games. You can see the margin here, and you can see the total. So this is very helpful when you're betting totals. You can take a look. Now, one of the things that jumps out at me is they just played Golden State back on the 23rd of October, and the score was 125 to 130, and there was 255 total points in that game. So that's one that you may say, hey, they've already played once. They put up 255. It was a fast-paced game, so that's an over we want to look at. Here you can see Golden State's lost 4 straight games, a couple close wins. The red are blowouts, they're double-digit losses. The green are double-digit wins. Everything's color-coded. And over here we have all your normal records. We have how we rank perimeter, defense. These are fantasy point rankings to the position. So if you do betting and fantasy sports, you can kind of flip through here and say, okay, Golden State, they're 29th versus centers. So if there's a center on this team, actually bigs, power forward and centers, they're both 29th. You could look at that. Shooting guard and shooting forward or small forward are the ones that you would want to go for Golden State to just kind of push you in the right direction. Down here, there's a whole bunch of information. There's tutorial videos that go over this. This is going to show you just kind of the stats, the rankings, and then the last 3 games as far as like rebounds, turnovers. And then over here, you've got your efficiency columns, which here you can see kind of what they are versus league average, and then what the offense, defense. So if you're new to sports betting, I would just flip through the games, look at this main model, look at the last 10 games of what they've done, and then you can glance down here and see kind of offense, defense. So to give you an example, from an efficiency standpoint, 1.05 is kind of league average. That means that they score or give up 105 points per game. So if it's offensive efficiency, 1.05 means they score 105 points per 100 possessions. Well, here you can see Sacramento is scoring 1.09. So that means they score about 4 points per 100 possessions more than average, so 1.09. But they're also giving up 1.11. So they're giving up 111 points per 100 possessions, which is about 6 more points than the average team. So they have a good offense, and their defense is not as good, which you can tell. 249, 232, 235, 255. They have some big totals, so a lot of points can be scored in that game. And Golden State kind of the same way, but you can flip through all of the games and take a look at this. And over here, we got a little thing. It'll kind of tell you what our model's roughly going to say. Here, we have Toronto favored by a lot more. And then over here, you can see Chicago. They play much slower, a little bit above league average. Toronto scoring a massive amount of points over league average, and they're about league average on defense. So that's kind of what we got for the cheat sheet. So I post this twice a day. It's good for sports betting, player props, prize picks, whatever you want. We're always adding to it, growing it, making it bigger. So if you have any questions, let me know, guys, and good luck.